Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, we're getting closer to the end of our Pre-Zettelkasten series, and today we're going to cover the topic of indexing. Why you need one, how you do it, why you do it the way I suggest you do it, everything you would want to know about indexing. So come on over to the down-facing camera. We've got a lot of work built up for ourselves, so let's get at it. Okay, here we begin with where we left off in the last podcast, where we had created quite a number of cards using the organic structure method. And now we will address how you are going to find any card again in the future and why you might be looking for a card in the future. This material applies to any form of organization that you might choose. We are going to be building an index, which is a whole additional section in your Zettelkasten. The index is organized alphabetically A to Z, and that's exactly the way we begin. We can start out by making cards for every letter of the alphabet from A to Z, producing all 26 of them, or we can just create them as we need them when we discover that, oh, I've got that letter now. So an index is going to be a whole A to Z section in your Zettelkasten where you can look up alphabetically by keyword and find all of the main cards that contain that keyword. Let's see what that means specifically. Here's one of our cards. It's the first one we added to our system when we were following the organic method. And so it's card number 1. And we have, here is our tagline. What we're going to place in the index are taglines. Our index will index all of our taglines for all of the keywords in the tagline. So what's a keyword and how do we decide which ones to use? I like to underline the keywords in a given tagline. And the simplest way that I've found to really hit the key ones and not bring along words that aren't going to be valuable or productive is to do them one by one. If I only got to pick one keyword in this entire tagline, what keyword would it be? I might say a Zettelkasten is the most important keyword. You might think a different word is the most important, and guess what? That would be just fine. You get to choose. So then I would say, okay, well, what if I got to pick a second keyword? What would the second one be? Well, for me, I think it would be conversation. Do I need a third word? Is 2 enough? What would the third word be? Would it be look or wherever or occur? I think I'm going to be just fine with just the 2 conversations in a Zettelkasten. So now I know which keywords I'm going to index. Let's do it. I work through each of my underlined words from left to right. That way I don't get lost. So my first keyword is conversations, and it starts with a C. I haven't made a C card yet, so I have to make one. And by the way, what's that parentheses 1 after all of the letters? Well, that has to do with the fact that as your Zettelkasten grows, you're going to end up with more than one of these filled up. And we'll just keep numbering them as we go. So what goes into the index entry? I like to start with the card number. Some people prefer to put the card number at the end of the entry. That's just fine. If you prefer the card numbers at the end, go for it. But what I'm going to suggest that you include in your entry is the entire tagline. I'm going to write it out and then I'll explain why I think that's so important. The reason why I include the entire tagline in an index entry are several. By writing it out again, I am to use the word of Scott Shepard, neuro-imprinting it on my mind. I'm drilling it into my mind and reminding myself that I think this is important enough that I want to remember this. The second reason is when you go to use the entry, when you're either looking up for a specific card that you have in mind, you can find very quickly if it's the card you want because the tagline should bring the whole card back to memory. And the third reason is later on when your Zettelkasten gets larger and you can no longer compare each new card physically to every card that exists in your Zettelkasten, you'll be using your index for that purpose. And you'll be looking up your conversations in your index. And having the entire tagline will really help you know whether this might be the conversation your new card wants to join. Okay, so now I've got the card number and the entire tagline, and I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to underline the letter C to indicate that this is where the keyword is. This step isn't required, but later on when I'm looking for the matching words, it sure does help to have the starting letter underlined. I don't underline the whole word. A little later on, hopefully in this same lesson, we'll find out why I don't underline the whole word at first. Okay, so I have my first keyword indexed. Now I want to do the same for the second keyword, Zettelkasten. I've already got my Z card, so I just need to add the entry. So just like as before, I've got the entire tagline and I've underlined Z. This card is now fully indexed and it's ready to be filed into your Zettelkasten. It's the first card in the Zettelkasten. What fun. Okay, here's our next card. Strive for ideals, don't measure by them. Pick out your keywords. I think ideals is the first. Second, I'm going to pick measure, but I think strive is equally important. So I've got strive, ideals, and measure are my keywords. I don't have an S yet, so I'm going to start that letter and put in the entire tagline. Okay, so here's my first card. My next one is going to be ideals. I'll make my letter I card first. So here's my second index entry, and I need one more for measure. I make my M card, and so the third card is ready. Now my second card is fully indexed and is ready to go into my Zettelkasten. In a similar way, I would go through and underline the keywords in each of these cards and add them one by one, keyword by keyword, into my index, gradually fleshing it out. Now, one thing I want to share with you is going to happen when we get to this block of cards. All of a sudden, we're going to have 4 cards that all have the word aha in them. Well, if you're like most people who keep a Zettelkasten, you'll follow the three's a crowd rule. And the way that rule goes, if a given entry is going to appear in your alphabetical card 3 times, it deserves a card of its own. And so I would create an aha card, and each of these cards would go on to the aha card. Interesting thing is going to happen as you start keeping your index. When you bring a new card into your system, and the new card, remember, the first thing it always asks, is there a conversation the new card wants to join? That index is going to be your starting place for answering that question. And you're going to be comparing the tagline of your new card to many of the index entries that you've already created. Certainly, you will work from the underlined words in your new card when you're looking for your match. Is there a conversation I want to join? But sometimes you're going to look for synonyms, complementary topics, many different ways, and your index is going to help you find all of the possible places that you might want to look for the best match for your card. Another interesting thing is going to happen that as you compare these card entries in your index, you're going to be getting a lot of sparks flying. Cards that don't directly relate are going to start bouncing off one another and just getting your subconscious mind glowing with all of the fun associations that it's going to be able to make. And as you start pulling off those keywords that are promoted because three's a crowd, they've got 3 entries of their own, they're going to make their own conversation. And you're going to have some amazing insights coming right out of your index. So it's a very, very valuable tool. Many people ask, do I have to index every card? That's a lot of work. Well, my answer to that one is yes, you do have to index every card. But if it seems like it's going to be too much work for a given main card, maybe I can save you even more work. Don't make the main card. If it's not worth really implanting it into your memory, why make it in the first place? Maybe it's just a piece of information that you would just as happily keep on the cards that you made while reading the book. The ones where you turned the card sideways and made notes in the page number, maybe it could just stay there if it's not important enough to be its own card that deserves to be indexed for every key word. So Just knowing that you're going to be indexing every card will help you with your selection process so that you will select the very best cards to add to your idea, the very best ideas, and you're shaping the very best conversations that your entire Zettelkasten is capable of producing. That can be incredibly valuable. So don't skip your indexing step. Index every keyword for every tagline, the whole tagline for every index entry. It's really worth the effort. See you later. Bye-bye.